So we were talking about the recognition criteria. So we talked about two elements that determine a recognition of an asset or a liability. So what are the two recognition criteria? The probability of, in this case, we are looking at the recognition criteria from an asset perspective. So from an asset perspective, we say that a recognition is, we can recognize if it has the probability that the future economic benefit associated with the item will flow into the entity. Secondly, the cost of the item can be measured reliably. So these are the two things. Okay, not just the item, the economic benefit can also be measured reliably. So there are two aspects here, not just the item in itself, but also the benefit is measurable. Okay, so both these things have to be taken into account. So items such as spare parts, standby equipment, and service equipment are recognized in accordance with this section when they meet the definition of property, plant, and equipment. Otherwise, such items are classified as inventory. Okay. So there is a difference between inventory and property, plant, and equipment. Now remember, inventory are the ones that you sell to make a profit. Property, plant, and equipment are items that you use to produce items that you sell. Do you understand the difference between the two clearly? Do you understand what I just said? Do you understand the difference between the two? One, property, plant, and equipment is what you use to make something that you sell. What you make is called inventory. Is that clear? Okay. So parts of some items of property, plant, and equipment may require replacement at regular intervals. For example, the roof of a building. Some equipment that go outdated every couple of years. For example, some computers may be outdated every 5 years. Okay, things like that. An entity shall add to the carrying amount of a property, plant, and equipment the cost of replacing parts such as items that is cost incurred in the replacement part through. And how you do that is you have what you call a depreciation amount. So by depreciating, you are actually making an allowance for it to be replaced in the future. So there are two. Can somebody explain as to why we depreciate a cost? Why do we allocate a cost for it, for depreciation? Any thoughts, anyone?
Sometimes the machinery need to be repaired, or sometimes the machinery need to be replaced. So if we have the depreciation amount, it will be very easy at the end to use them.
Correct. So in other words, depreciation, having the depreciation amount expensed out, meaning you're taking it out of your profit, and there is a retained element of that in one sense, right? So in other words, you're saving as a collection for purchasing something similar in the future. Is that clear? Yes? Everything okay? All right. If it is not practical for any entity to determine the carrying amount of the replaced part, the entity may use the cost of the replacement as an indication of what the cost of the replaced part was at the time it was acquired or constructed. Okay. So the key thing is, regardless of whether the replaced parts had been depreciated separately, you still need to have some kind of replacement cost in case you need to replace those parts. Okay. So one of the other things is you need to look at how you depreciate it. You look at the total life of the asset, which is now in my home country, Sri Lanka, some people use computers for 10 years. But for us in academia, in university, our computers are replaced every 3 years. So it is assumed that every 3 years, your computer goes out of date. Okay. So in that context, you need to look at how long the useful life of an asset is and then depreciate it accordingly. A condition of continuing to operate an item of property, plant, and equipment may be performing regular major inspections for faults regardless of whether the parts of the items are replaced. So you need to obviously maintain and have a regular maintenance process for all property, plant and equipment. So unless we do that, we don't know whether the property, plant and equipment are safe. Professor Charumati, in your house, do you do regular maintenance and checkup? You go around the house, you see if there are any leaks, anything that's broken. You don't, do you fix it like that? Do you do it regularly?
Yes.
So similar with my house, Prof, and you know, couple of just about a couple of months before you came to visit me, we had a roof leak. So I had to get some people to come. I had to clean up the roof, and there was some tiles broken. I had to fix the tiles up. So that is maintenance. That doesn't mean I had to replace my entire roof, but I still had to do regular maintenance. So just like that, regular maintenance has to be done with property, plant and equipment. Okay. Land and buildings are separable assets, and an entity shall account for them separate, even when they are acquired together. So, in case of my home, there are two elements on how I pay tax on my home: the land value and the building value. So they say the land value is one calculation. The capital improvement of the land is what they call the property, the actual building. So capital improved value and the land value are given separately. So on that, I pay the tax. So similarly, you need to distinguish between the two and have the value sorted out separately. So measurement at recognition. The entity shall measure an item, property, plant and equipment, initially recognition at its cost. Okay, so initially, we need to recognize property, plant and equipment at cost. The cost of an item of property, plant and equipment comprises all of the following. You have to consider the purchase price, including legal, brokerage fees, import duties, non-refundable purchase taxes, and all those things. So when I value my house, I add in all these other things I paid for as well. Any cost directly attributable to bringing that asset to the location and condition necessary for it to be capable of operating in the manner intended by management. These can include cost of site preparation, initial delivery and handling, installation and assembly, and testing of functionality as well. Okay. So initial estimation cost of dismantling and removing the item and restoring it on site also has to be taken into consideration if you are doing that only. But it strictly says that you do not cost an item, property, plant and equipment that as part of property, plant and equipment, and an entity shall recognize them as an expense when they are incurred as cost of opening a new facility, cost of introducing a new product or service. Those things like that are considered as an expense. Okay. So, what are the other things that I need to look at? A cost of conducting business in the new location, administration and other general overhead costs, borrowing costs, and all those things are considered as expenses and not capitalized as property, plant and equipment. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Some of these dodgy things, dodgy means, you know, illegal things happen when they capitalize these costs and consider them as assets, whereas they should have originally been expenses. Okay. So that is where some companies have fallen into trouble in the past. Right. Measurement of cost. The cost of an item of property, plant and equipment is the cash price or equivalent at recognition date. So you value the property, plant and equipment when you recognize its acquisition. So on acquisition, you recognize, here it says, let me just increase that a little bit. Okay. You recognize it at acquisition, recognition date. If payment is deferred beyond normal credit terms, the cost is the present value of all future payments. Okay. So exchange of assets. An item's property, plant and equipment may be acquired in exchange for a non-monetary asset or assets, or a combination of monetary and non-monetary assets. In that sequence, you need to talk about the fair value of the asset and then give an estimation and value it at that. Okay. Measurement after initial recognition. An entity shall choose either cost model as discussed below on paragraph or the revaluation model. We'll talk about them very quickly, but not in great detail because this is not an accounting subject. So I don't want to go into too deep into all this. The cost model is where the entity shall measure the item, property, plant, and equipment after initial recognition at cost less the accumulated depreciation. So it's the cost model. So what we are saying is that, okay, this is how much we paid for it. This is our cost. This is the depreciation. So the final value of the asset is the asset what we paid for minus the depreciation and any accumulated impairment losses. Okay, so then that is the net amount of acquisition. The other method of valuing an asset is an entity shall measure the items, property, plant, and equipment at fair value that can be measured reliably. So in some instances, I'll give you a very interesting scenario. Okay? How I'm going to tell you how the same asset will be measured differently at fair value in two different countries. Okay, in Australia, if I buy a car in 3-4 years time, what's going to happen to the value of the car? What do you think?
The value of the car would be decreased.
How much? How much depreciation?
Might be 10%, sir.
In 3 to 5 years, you will depreciate about 40% in Australia. So if somebody buys a BMW for $200,000, which is about 10 million Indian rupees or something like that, it will be worth about 6 million after 5 years. Okay. But if I look at the same situation in Sri Lanka, I bought, when I was young, I bought an old car. I paid probably about Indian rupees 5 lakhs at that time. I'm talking about 25 plus years ago. Okay. I paid 5 lakhs. I used it for 3 years and I sold it for how much? 9 lakhs. Bought it for 5 lakhs, used it for 3-4 years and sold it for 9 lakhs. So in the Sri Lankan context, because of the supply and demand and things like that, because of the tax and all these things, there's an artificial appreciation of a car even if it's used due to various reasons. So recently Sri Lanka banned importation of vehicles. What do you think would have happened to the already vehicles that are in stock? What do you think would have happened to the old cars that are in the market? They almost doubled in price. So you see, there is a bit of a situation when you're talking about the cost model and revaluation model or fair value model, you need to look at the context. So everything is context dependent. You see, that is why I said, you remember I showed you my phone and I asked you how much you would pay for this phone. Can you remember in my first or second lecture? Did I ask you that?
Yes,
Professor
sir.
Charmati, I remember asking that.
Yes, sir.
I did, right?
Yes, sir.
Can somebody tell me whether I asked you that? Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So you see, just like that, it is dependent on context. So property, plant and equipment, you need to value it in that context. Okay? Right. So if an asset is carrying amount is increased as a result of a valuation, the increase shall be recognized in other comprehensive income. So in this situation, you can value the asset, but the revaluation of it has to be recognized separately as other comprehensive income. Okay. Depreciation, obviously, I spoke about depreciation and what depreciation is. There are different methods of depreciation. Again, you don't have to worry too much about this, but know that depreciation has to be applied to all assets. Okay. I'm not going to go through depreciation methods, different methods. Impairment, recognition of and measurement of impairment. At each reporting date, an entity shall apply section 27, which is impairment of assets, to determine whether an item or group of items of property, plant and equipment has indeed impaired. So in an Australian context, when I bought my car, I bought it, let's say I bought it for what, 500,000 rupees. Today it's worth 30,000 rupees after 3-4 years of use. In Sri Lanka, if I bought my car for 500,000, I would have an appreciation, not a depreciation. So you see the beauty of it. Okay. So you need to talk about this recognition of impairments. You have to do the test of impairment. Then that section explains when and how an entity reviews the carrying amount of its assets. how it determines the recoverable amount of an asset, and when it recognizes or reverses an impairment loss. Compensation for impairment. An entity shall include in profit or loss compensation for third parties for items of property, plant, and equipment that are impaired, lost, or given up only when the compensation becomes receivable. Okay, so I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but okay, another thing is disclosure. Entity shall disclose the following for each class of property, plant, and equipment. So this is somewhat important. The measurement base used for determining the gross carrying amount, the depreciation method used, use life of depreciating rates used, and so forth. So there are different aspects. So in other words, I'll classify this as comprehensive disclosure of property, plant, and equipment needs to be made when you are looking at it. Okay? Even for SME. Now, again, if you run an SME as a proper business, it will help you in the medium and long run. It might not necessarily help you in the short run, because in the immediate run, you might have to spend more time and effort and a little bit of money to set up these structures. But if you have these structures in place as an SME, it will give you better access to loans, better access to banks, better access to funding, better access to suppliers, better sales strategy, better marketing strategy, better pricing strategy. All these things can come into play. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next area now in the interest of time. So next we talk about intangible assets and other goodwill. Okay. This section applies to accounting for all intangible assets other than goodwill. Remember, goodwill is different. Okay. Intangible assets is an identifiable non-monetary asset without physical substance, such as assets with identifiable when it is separable, i.e. capable of being separated or divided from the entity and sold, transferred, licensed, rented, or exchanged, either individually or together with related contract, asset, or liability. Okay. It arises from a contractual or other legal rights, regardless of whether those rights are transferable or separable from the entity or from other rights and obligations. Obviously, this section does not apply to financial assets. It's non-financial assets, and also does not apply to minerals, mineral reserves, and etc. Okay. So general principles of recognition of intangibles also have to be taken into account. The recognition criteria does apply. If it is probable and expected that the future economic benefits that are attributed to the asset will flow to the entity, the cost or value of the asset can be measured reliably, and the asset does not result from expenditure incurred internally on an intangible item. Okay, it has to be generated, it has to be there in existence. Okay, so let's put this in very simple terms. Can you give me an example of an intangible asset?
Copyrights and patents.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Copyrights, patents, trademark.
Copyright. Yes, copyright would be an intangible asset. A patent means a design for a particular equipment. Apple phone, the design of an Apple phone would be an intangible asset. Your data could be an intangible asset. Okay. Your data, for example, would be an intangible asset. What else? How does Facebook make money? How many of you use Facebook? Can you raise your hand? You can use the system to raise your hand. You know how to use that. Have you used Zoom before? Can you use the system to raise your hand and tell me how many of you use Facebook? Can you raise your hand and tell me how many of you are using it? Raise your hand in the sense, not your real hand, your digital hand. Yes, good. Got 2 people. Anyone else uses Facebook? So how do you think Facebook makes money?
So
So,
they earn money
for
from
the
the ad.
advertisement purposes,
How do they advertise?
They make
based
customer
upon
friendly
our
product.
Based upon your,
So they
somebody said it, I think it was, who was it? Somebody mentioned what it is.
so
Yeah,
they
based
will
upon
get.
Can one person talk, please? Can one of you talk? We'll let ladies go first. This young lady, can you please tell me what you
Sir,
say, what you said earlier?
based upon our recent search and recent things we have bought, these things will be advertised in the Facebook, sir.
Correct. Not just your recent searches, but also based on your profile. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, when I had my first child, my daughter, I was looking for different things online, and all of a sudden, Facebook is sending me all this information about baby diapers, baby products, baby clothes, and all these things, but without even me saying anything about it. So it captures your data, and that data for them is what you call an intangible asset for them. Okay, right. So initial measurement, an entity shall measure intangible assets initially at cost. If you acquire them, then you have also a basis of acquisition cost to measure that particular asset, intangible asset with. Okay. Acquisition of way by a government grant, you can do that. You can do that as an exchange of assets. You can also have internally generated intangible assets through R&D, through research and development. You can develop internally generated assets. So in this situation, also you can actually measure this using the cost of generation of that particular asset. Past expenses not to be recognized as an asset. Expenditure on an intangible item that was initially recognized as an expense shall not be recognized at a later date as part of the cost of asset. So if it's expense in the given year, it's gone. Okay, you can't re-recognize it. Measurement after recognition. An entity shall measure intangible assets at cost less any accumulated amortization. So we use the term amortization for intangible assets. We call depreciation for tangible assets. So that's the key difference between the two. Okay? Impairment losses are any degradation of an intangible asset is called impairment. Okay? Right. So useful life of an intangible asset has to be measured and made into account. Amortization period and amortization methods have to be also calculated. You need to talk about a residual value depending on an active market. How much would it be at the end of its life cycle? In most cases, intangible assets will be worth relatively nothing. Okay, in most cases, but that's not always the case. Also, you need to make continuous disclosures in the report when you're doing this. So there are a number of items that you need to disclose: amortization method used, the useful life, the gross carrying amount, the statement. There are some items that need to go into comprehensive income. You need to talk about the reconciliation of carrying amounts at beginning and end of the reporting period, showing separately the additions, disposals, acquisitions, and so forth. So these show the list of things that you need to disclose overall. Again, you just need to go through it. Again, this is not a pure accounting course, so we don't need to be thorough with all this, but you need to read this and understand parts of it. An entity shall disclose the aggregated amount of research and development expenditure recognized as an expense during the period. So there has to be, if you are doing research and dev, you need to identify how much of it has been spent on research and development, and if you have not had a tangible asset in that given year, that cost would be depreciated, or sorry, expense rather, sorry. Okay. Right. So
this topic, we'll take it up in the next session.
sorry.
This business combinations,
Yeah.
we will take up in the next session, right?
I am planning to, if I can cover it today, I don't mind doing it. Let's give me
Okay.
1 second. There's something else I wanted to write to you. Give me one.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to share something with you. Bear with me. Can you see this? Can you see this?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to play it now. Let me try this again.
As their name suggests, tangible assets such as physical gold or real estate can actually be touched, and this tends to give people a more authentic sense of ownership. Intangible assets tend to be perceived as more abstract and can be 1. Completely intangible, such as Bitcoin or domain names, or 2. Claims to tangible assets such as a stock certificate which makes you the owner of a small percentage of a company. That company has real equipment, as well as lots of tangible assets, assets that you, as a shareholder, indirectly own. The main pro of tangible assets is that they're limited in quantity. Central banks can't just print gold or real estate, for example. The main con, however, is that they're hard or even impossible to move around. What if you're forced to leave your country after something like a socio-political calamity? You'd have to leave your real estate behind, and even once highly portable tangible assets such as gold or silver can easily be confiscated at the border or at checkpoints if capital controls are instituted with today's technology. The main pro of intangible assets is that they're extremely portable. For some, such as Bitcoin or domains, you don't even need a piece of paper. Just remember some login details and you're good to go. The main con, however, is that if something renders you unable to access the internet, a war for example, it's very easy to lose access to such assets. As can be seen, these two asset types complement one another, and a balanced personal finance strategy should definitely include both.
Okay. So that gives you a very quick overview of tangible and intangible assets in a bit of a fun way, right? So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think? So very simply, now my philosophy is in most cases that even the most complex things you can explain in simple ways. If you understand the simple things, that means you understand the complex things as well. Okay. So let me look at something else. Okay. Right. So do you have any questions up to this point in relation to what we have covered? So there is a question here. They monetize it by using the data and decide, sorry, okay, that was an answer to, Kirtika, that was the answer to the previous question. Sorry, okay. Any other questions? You are not challenging me now. You need to ask me questions. You need to challenge me. Come. Ask me some questions.
So you were talking about the fair value of the assets.
Yes.
So in a tangible case, we can easily assess the value based on the market value.
Yes.
So, but it is not such case with the intangible assets. Like we can't easily
Correct.
calculate.
Okay. So what is your question? How do we make an intangible asset? Is that your question?
Yes, sir. How we
Right, that's a
can
good
derive
question.
the fair value of that is.
Okay. There are a number of ways how you can derive a fair value of an asset, of an intangible asset. First one is at cost. So how much did it cost you to derive this asset? Now you need to keep in mind if a cost is already expense, you can't recognize that. So usually it is the cost of the given year of expenses that you put into this particular asset that is considered as. So it's at cost. The other way of recognizing is if you acquire it, if you pay an amount of money for an intangible asset, then that is recognized as cost. For example, if you purchase a Bitcoin at 2,000 US dollars, then what is the cost of that intangible asset? $2,000. That's one way. The second way is by fair value. That's a bit tricky. How much is an intangible asset worth in an open market? So there you have to sometimes make an estimate or get valuation. So one of the ways that we do it is through business valuation. So we value how much the intangible component of a particular item is worth by getting at least 2 to 3 independent valuations of a particular asset. Then what I usually do is I average it out. So when I was in my previous role, that's a good question actually. In my previous role, I had to value for a matter for the bank, I had to value some intellectual property we had in terms of know-how of designing or redesigning a particular IT component for my previous company. Okay, these are specialist equipment. So the process of doing that was what we had, which were unique to us. So how I went about measuring that particular thing was I actually got 2 independent inspectors or valuers, technical valuers, to come in and give me an estimate of how much particular process would have cost, the process or the value of the process. And then I put my own 2 cents worth into it, and I said, okay, if we didn't have this process in place, if we followed a standard industry-based process, how much will it cost? What is the cost difference? And how long can we use this process? And I multiplied that by the number of years of useful life. And therefore, I was able to get my own third independent figure, which was lower than what the other 2 had given. So I was conservative, whereas the other 2 were slightly more. The 2 external reviewers or the external valuers were a little bit more. So what we did was, or what I did was, I added all these 3 together and averaged it. And I valued this particular process at this new amount, which I have decided based on independent fair value evaluation. Does that make sense? Murali? Murali, does that make sense?
Really?
Yes, sir.
Any questions there? Good, that's a good question. Anyone else wants to ask me any question? How many of you use Facebook? No, not Facebook, sorry, LinkedIn.
Most of them, sir, all are just using now.
All of you use LinkedIn?
Yes, sir. All of them.
So how do you value your profile based on LinkedIn?
By posting our achievements, what we accomplished
How many
during
good
the period of
contacts?
time.
How the content that you publish, how many contacts you have, what else?
Good.
The quality of the contacts, yes. So all these things have what you call an intangible value to your asset. Does that make sense? Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that is another classic example of an intangible asset that you have as your as your LinkedIn account is considered as an intangible asset in your personal balance sheet. Does that make sense? Okay. Right. If you don't have any more questions, I don't mind doing a little bit more of next week's section, if that's all right. Let me just get that up and running. So I'll give you one last chance. Any other questions before I move on to the next section?
You can.
Yes, go ahead. Ask me.
Sir, do you know about Ethereum?
Sorry, can you repeat that again a little bit louder?
Ethereum.
Actuarial studies.
Not it studies, not sir. It's about type of Bitcoin. It's now famous in all over the
Oh,
world.
sorry. You're talking about, okay, different type of digital. You're talking about digital currency, right?
Yes, sir. Very different. Something so different like that.
Look, digital currency, they'll come up with all these different things. They all have their purpose. They all have their different viewpoints. So I'm not going to go into detail about each of these different categories and so forth. So for me, I would rather leave it like that and then talk about the concept in itself. So in such situations, you're better off by just talking about the actual actual concept behind it, as opposed to going into different brand names. So Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, all these things are there. But in essence, it is a type of a cola. It is a type of a drink. So similarly, a digital currency, whether it be Bitcoin or anything else for that matter, is in essence a type of a digital currency. So I wouldn't differentiate them. I mean, there would be underlying technology differences in how it is implemented. Yes, I agree. But that necessarily doesn't mean that they are significantly different to each other, if that makes sense. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Shyam, that's a good question as well. Thank you. All right. Let's quickly look at the first bit of business combination and goodwill. Now, goodwill we didn't talk about as an intangible asset. Goodwill is not considered as an intangible asset. It's something different. Now, in this section applies to business combinations. It provides guidance on identifying the acquirer, measurement, and the cost of business combinations and assets acquired and liabilities and so forth. It also addresses accounting for goodwill both at the time of business combination and subsequent. Okay. So, if I ask you first of all, what is goodwill? Can you explain to me how you would define goodwill in your own words?
Brand recognition, Professor.
Can you repeat that again?
Brand recognition.
Brand resolution. No, brand resolution is what you call an intangible asset. It's a brand.
Brand recognition, Professor.
Brand recognition is also an intangible asset. It is not a goodwill.
The reputation, Professor.
Reputation in itself, that's an interesting one. Reputation, I would say reputation of a product or a particular brand, it's an intangible asset, but is it necessarily goodwill? Or is it a brand attached to a particular, particular trademark? So if you look at a trademark and the value of a trademark, is trademark an intangible asset or a goodwill?
It's an intangible asset, Professor.
It's an intangible asset, but it is goodwill. There's a difference between intangible asset and goodwill.
So goodwill is the good value of the company. Like good value of the company in front of the customers and its stakeholders.
So let me put it this way, okay? You have a business entity, okay? And you have a brand name which the business entity owns. Can the business entity sell this particular brand name? If they can, that is a intangible asset. In other words, it's a brand asset. If they sell the, leave aside the trademark, if the company itself is sold in the marketplace, then the concept of goodwill is a little bit different, isn't it? That is why it's a tricky area, okay? And that's why I wanted to spend some time discussing the concept of goodwill. So what do you think? Can you explain to me what, someone else, what do you think, how would you consider goodwill?
Value of the company, sir,
Value of the company.
in front of the stakeholders.
Okay. Let's watch a quick video, okay? I'm going to pause this. And I'm going to share something. Okay.
What is goodwill? We will discuss the definition of the finance and accounting term goodwill and make sense of how goodwill works by discussing one of the largest technology acquisitions in recent history, the acquisition of social network LinkedIn by Microsoft. We will review the calculation of goodwill for that headline-grabbing deal, which is a great example of how to record goodwill on the balance sheet. For some companies, goodwill is in the top 3 of largest categories of assets on their balance sheet. If you want to make sense of a company's financial statements, then the basic understanding of the concept of goodwill is invaluable. Let's start with the definition of goodwill. Please don't panic if this sounds somewhat cryptic to you. It will all become clear very soon. Goodwill is the excess of the purchase price paid for an acquired firm over the fair value of its separately identifiable net assets. Let's illustrate the definition of goodwill with an example. The businessman in the blue suit and the businessman in the red suit come to an agreement. Blue pays a larger sum of money to red, and in return red transfers the ownership of a factory to blue. How does goodwill come into this picture? If the purchase price is $3 billion and the net assets are $2 billion, then the difference of $1 billion is goodwill. You could disrespectfully call goodwill an accounting plug in order to make the journal entry balance. If $3 billion of cash leaves the door, and on paper I only get net assets of $2 billion in return, then I need to plug $1 billion somewhere in order for the debits to equal the credits.
So you see the difference here. Did you see the difference between this video and the one I showed you before in terms of intangible assets? What is the key difference?
I think that goodwill is equal to liability only, sir.
Goodwill is a liability.
No, sir, like it is the extra value apart from the fair value.
No, it's
It is the
it's
amount
good
that
for
somebody is willing to pay.
suit.
Sorry?
It's good for it's more asset for red suit, I think so. But in terms of blue coat, it's not. I think it's liable only.
If you look at this particular example, this blue guy is paying $3 billion to the red guy to purchase $2 billion worth of assets. Now, in that $2 billion assets, he has valued the goodwill of the company at $1 billion. However, in that 1 billion, there could be other intangible assets also. Or the intangible assets could be the value of the net assets. Some of the net assets could be worth 2 billion. So example is, if I go to buy Facebook, if I'm going to buy Facebook, Facebook says, okay, its people, its data is worth this much. So they put a value on its tangible assets and intangible assets. So it says its tangible assets are worth 1 billion, its intangible assets are worth 1 billion. So the total value of the company of its net assets, including tangible and intangible assets, are 2 billion. I repeat, the value of Facebook, this is a hypothetical scenario, not the real value. The hypothetical value of Facebook is $1 billion in tangible assets and $1 billion in intangible assets. So if you combine this, the total net assets are 2 billion. But this guy is paying 3 billion for those 2 billion worth of net assets, which could include tangible and intangible. So when you are buying a company like this, if you pay more than what the share price, sorry, you pay more than what the total assets of the company are worth, that extra amount you pay is what you say that you are paying for goodwill. Do you see the difference between this and intangible assets? So now can somebody explain to me the difference between intangible assets and goodwill?
So do you say that goodwill adds some intangible assets like trademarks?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So do you say that goodwill adds some intangible assets called trademark, even in that value, even in that
Look,
goodwill?
The only time when goodwill will have some of these things included is where the intangible asset in itself is not separately identified and measured and listed down under its assets. Does that make sense?
So can you repeat it? I'm not getting.
Okay, I'll repeat it again. The only time some of these intangible assets may be under goodwill is where it is not separately identifiable.
Okay. Okay.
If it is separately identifiable, then it will be listed as an asset in the balance sheet as an intangible asset.
Okay. And here we come under net assets.
Correct.
Okay.
You cannot recognize internally generated goodwill. So you cannot say, okay, my company is worth 2 billion, but I think it might be worth 3 billion. Let's recognize goodwill of 1 billion. You can't do that. So this red man here can't automatically recognize 1 billion of goodwill unless he sells. When he sells it, if somebody pays more, the blue man can recognize it, but the red man can never recognize goodwill for his own company. You can only recognize purchased goodwill. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is different for intangible assets. Do you see the key difference there?
Yes. Intangible assets we can predict by ourselves, sir. But this goodwill, it has been predicted by the outsiders or the people who are
predicted. Not predicted. It's never predicted. It's measured.
Okay, sir. Measured.
Like IPL auction.
Sorry?
It's more like IPL auction.
The what option?
IPL auction.
What is IPL option?
Some of the team will buy players.
Yes, of course. IPL. I thought you were talking about initial public listing, so initial public offering. Sorry, IPL. You're talking about the cricket. Okay. Yes, that is a good point. So a purchase goodwill, that is what you call purchase goodwill. You buy a player, you're paying above and beyond, so that difference in cost, what he is really worth and what you're paying for, the difference is can be considered as goodwill. Yeah. Very good. So now you
Yes, sir.
understand the difference between intangible assets and goodwill. Yes?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, Kavya.
Sir, if a company is listed as a top 10 company or the best place to work, does these things will affect the goodwill, sir?
It will only affect the goodwill if somebody buys that company.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Otherwise, it won't.
Yes, sir.
However, that is where integrated thinking and integrated reporting comes in, because integrated thinking and reporting considers what you just said as a capital, as a resource. You remember social and relationships capital? There are 6 capitals. I did this on the first day, integrated reporting. So
Yes, sir.
you see this weakness now in the IFRS system. This is a good discussion. Now you see the weakness of accounting, and now you see how integrated thinking, integrated reporting makes that weakness to exceed into something else. Do you see how integrated thinking and reporting comes in now?
Yes, sir.
So integrated thinking lets you value this, but it does not let you measure it per se. So it is a capital, but it is what you call a non-monetary capital. So it is what you call a descriptive capital. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. So we will stop there. I'll send you, I'm going to just quickly send this video on our chat discussion so that you can watch it. Can you all click on this link? Yes, somebody's, yeah, Professor Charumati has very nicely explained the equation here. Thank you, Prof. That's very beautifully done. Net assets equals all tangibles plus intangible assets minus liability. Absolutely. A business, the total value of business is value of tangible assets plus value of intangible assets plus goodwill. Perfect.
Yes, Prof. I'm teaching a paper on business valuation lab. So this is really an interesting topic. Yeah.
That's right. So this is mathematical model of what I'm just talking about. So I'm explaining to you the same thing in words, whereas Professor Charumati has now provided this.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
Put this thing on this particular from a mathematical point of or an equation point of view. Okay. So we'll stop it there for today. Do you have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording as well. Let me stop recording quickly. Stop recording.